Good afternoon and welcome to our second follow-up session for the inquiry into building regulations. Thank you very much for coming this afternoon to give evidence to us. Could I just ask, for the sake of our records, that you say, just going down the line, who you are and the organisation you represent?
Thank you, Chair. For the sake of brevity, I thought on behalf of myself and my colleagues, I'm Phil Buckle, who represents the Electrical Safety Council in the UK, which is dedicated to electrical safety. Steve Bratt is Chief Executive of the Electrical Contractors Association, which is a leading electrical contractors association for England and Wales. And Emma Clancy is representing Searchshaw, which ECA and ESC formed to set up the Electrical Safety Register, which is a whole of the UK register and covers 80% of electricians in England and Wales, which equates to 34,000 electricians. It offers a very strong consumer offer. It's not for profit, and it provides a single complaint and redress system to verify that everyone that comes onto the register is assessed for competence.
Chairman, my name is Martin Bruno. I'm representative of NAPIT. I'm also a director of Electric Safe Register. NAPIT is a national association of professional inspectors and testers. We are DCLD authorised to run the competent person scheme, and we've been authorised since 2005 and currently have over 8,500 registered enterprises on that electrical scheme. We also run other schemes. That's me.
Emma Clancy, and Phil has given an introduction for us all.
And the same myself, Steve.
Okay, thank you for coming once again. We've had exchanges of correspondence and a more informal meeting some time ago. But I suppose we're here to probe the same issue and ask the same questions. And perhaps you can tell us once again why the industry collectively in its various parts been able to agree upon a single scheme and a single register for competent persons. It's something that seemed to us as a committee, when we suggested it, it was something that might take a little time but wasn't unachievable. We've had quite a lot of time now and it hasn't been achieved.
Well, Chair, if I can start, if I may. Since we met you in January at the informal meeting, there has been some work undertaken. The Electrical Industry Summit, which the ESC hosted in March, I think was the starter for that process, where we came out with a number of recommendations in a white paper, which we've sent around to yourself. I know you received a copy, and other members of the committee, as well as a wider industry group. That has moved forward into, as we advised, that we would be looking at using the competent person scheme and developing a mark around the whole competent person scheme solution. Work has been undertaken through a marketing group, which the ECA have supported through one of its staff members, and indeed the ESC has also had one of its team working on that committee. I know the Competent Persons Forum hasn't met to look at the work that's been undertaken, and I believe it's meeting tomorrow, so there has been some progress towards that common mark that we discussed at the Industry Summit.
But it's not a common scheme, is it? I mean, what you've effectively done is to put a common mark over two separate schemes, which have got two separate brandings themselves, so you've just got another layer of branding on top. That's right, isn't it?
That's right, yeah. It may be helpful to just point out that the way the legislation is structured, Part B scheme, it's a competitive framework with competing schemes, and therefore those schemes run independently. What you're talking about is correct, is alignment at a higher level.
So basically you're saying you're not going to go for a common scheme, you put it completely off the agenda, out of possibility.
Can I speak on behalf of Electric Safe? Yes, there's been joint letters going to talking about a common brand on the CPF marketing scheme. There's nobody here from the CPF marketing scheme, so I think it's unfair to talk about what they actually progressed and have to offer. But if I can speak on behalf of Electric Safe Register, which I'm a director of, as I said before, I want to be controversial. Well, I don't want to be controversial, but I think there's one scheme. We promote competent persons. DCLG and your select committee suggest that there's a lack of branding in the competent persons arena, and that's what we've done. We've created a brand and a scheme open to all competent person scheme operators.
But we believe that it needs to be much more than a brand or a scheme. What consumers need is reassurance, redress, and first-hand verification of people's competence, so when they're choosing them. And Electric Safe is really like a telephone directory. It's a list of numbers, and it appears that there is no direct verification of that. What we think, whatever the one scheme is that is created, then we think it has to have very strong consumer credentials and not be a list of telephone numbers and be the first point of contact with an organisation that has the direct powers to put things right. It's also important to remember that when Searchable was created, we share the committee's objectives of simplifying the landscape within the competitive framework that Steve has discussed. So in the creation of Searchable, we brought together two of the scheme operators, and therefore did actually establish one place where 80% of the electricians are registered who do 90% of the electrical work in the UK. However, obviously, there are other competent person scheme operators, and that is the way that the schemes run currently, with Part P creating that baseline standards to which we all adhere to, but which Searchable aims to go further than in terms of both the consumer credentials and its operations.
So, Mr. Brenner, you've been told that your scheme isn't to the same standard as the other scheme.
And
therefore they won't join with you because you haven't got proper...
I disagree entirely, because we are DCLG authorised, government authorised to run a competent person scheme. We are UCAS accredited. We are DCLG inspected by UCAS. And I feel and we adopt and live by the EAS, which is Electrical Technical Assessment Specification Standards, which we all adhere to on this table here. I cannot see what further standards the Electrical Safety Register is talking about. We have 5 of the 6, maybe 7, if you include BESCA, of the competent person scheme operators on our register. We have the British Standards Institute, we have Ofhtec, we have Stroman, we have Benchmark. They all follow the same criteria and levels of authorisation. And can I add that the Electric Safe Register, I'm getting confused as well, the Electric Safe Register now advertises or has a search facility for all electricians with a check electrician which links back to the competent person site. So we can proudly boast that we actually promote 100%, if not more, of the competent person's full scope qualified electricians.
So what's the new overarching brand going to be called then?
As I said, I think there's one brand out there which is ours.
We're told you're actually going to have a brand that covered everything. There was a general agreement on that? You're going to keep your own brand and then put another brand on top of it?
It's the Competent Persons Scheme own website, where all of the competent person schemes are listed, is the single point where a householder can go to find an electrician or whoever else they may wear.
That's the great coming together, is it?
Well, that's what we've committed to the committee that we would look to promote.
So the public are going to be enthused by the idea that their understanding about what to do to make their homes safe in terms of rewiring, etc., is to go to something called the Competent Person's website. It trips off the tongue, doesn't it?
No, there's more work needed to be done, and certainly one of the things that the marketing team have looked at is improving the functionality of that, and that's part of their thing. But what we also know is that actually the bigger challenge is electrical safety awareness more generally. And certainly that's why we've undertaken a number of campaigns to actually raise people's awareness of the basic dangers of electricity in people's homes and the need to choose a competent person wherever they come from. And that's why the Electrical Safety Council's work as the only charity in the industry is so important in that key criteria.
Mark.
we don't seem to have got much further from the meeting that we held, I think, on the 23rd of January, as far as I can see. I mean, do you as organisations talk to one another? How are the negotiations to try and settle this out being held, or are there no negotiations?
As Electric Safe Register, back in when we launched it in November, we also had a meeting with the Minister, Don Foster, and we said we would go out and talk to all the competent person scheme operators to ask them to join and support one single brand. Can I just go back a little bit? I mean, my understanding of the select committee recommendations was promotion of a competent person scheme, a domestic scheme, and this is what we've done. We've gone out there and we've asked all the scheme operators, including Searchshore, to join our and support that overriding brand called Electric Safe, supported by or fed into it by all the scheme operators.
I think what this committee is keen on is what Emma Clancy referred to, which is a simplification of the system, but we don't seem to have achieved a simplification of the system.
Well,
we seem to have got entrenched positions by different bodies, and I'm just wondering, what's your view of how we resolve this matter?
The Electrical Safety Register has certain key values in terms of being the people that actually do the assessment themselves. So if something goes wrong and a consumer calls us up, we can help, and we also have powers to have discussions with the contractor, etc. We also feel that there needs to be the fundamental campaigns around electrical safety, and the charity is best placed to do that. And we also feel that the assessments need to be extremely robust, and that the Electrical Safety Register needs to grow, and we're certainly in talks with another party with a view to very quickly bringing on another 1,200 contractors. So what we would ask the committee to do is to look again at our progress in the timetable that the government has already set out, and measure again exactly these issues, and we would volunteer to play a key role in doing that, and to fund independent research that we can agree in whatever makes the committee comfortable to see. So we're asking for more time to deliver what the committee are asking.
And you aim to deliver a single register?
We aim to strengthen our position.
No. Do you aim to deliver a single register, yes or no?
Within the framework of the bit, all right, no, yes, because the building regs won't let us. Or the framework of the building regs.
So what you're saying is there's no willingness between the four people that are sitting opposite the committee today to go to a single register?
There's not a willingness to drop our standards in the likes of the register. We want a single register, but it's got to be meaningful and protect the consumer and serve the industry, and that's what we're striving to develop.
I believe wholeheartedly in a single brand fed into it by all the scheme operators and keeping that competitive element. We have that single brand. Electrical Safety Register is a Searchshore contractor scheme which promotes domestic and commercial. We are just looking at the man on the street looking for a domestic installer to work on their house in a safe manner. Emma talks about robust assessments and so on. We work to the same assessment process. We agree at EAS committee of that assessment process. I cannot see what differentiates their standards to all the other members of the scheme operators supporting Electric Safe Register.
All right. You said, I think we heard that you had a meeting with the Minister quite recently.
I met the Minister in November.
But the other body hasn't met the Minister?
No.
Okay. Well, what do you think the Minister makes of all this?
Well, I'm sure the Minister would want a single scheme. But is also aware of the fact that Part P is set up deliberately under a competitive arrangement. When the review was done recently, the conclusion was that contractors should have choice and competition was a good thing. So effectively you have competing schemes, separate schemes, commonality of standard. And what we're talking about now is trying to get them to operate under a common identity. What we found when we were competitors until 2 years ago, we started a process trying to bring things together. We thought 80% of the industry was good, particularly as it does 90% of the work. What we found was we couldn't just bring it together under a common brand, because the first time it gets tested as a website, it will just fall apart. It has to have substance. So 2 years in the making was Searchshore and the Electrical Safety Register. And what we concluded was the assessments have to be done in one place to a common standard. There has to be one process for handling complaints. And we created a new entity to do that, which we're joint venture partners in. That was challenging enough to get standards aligned, but it was made somewhat easier by the fact that we're a trade association and a charity, and we can be reassured that we're putting our money back into the development of the industry. It's clearly much more complex when you bring in other providers, particularly private companies.
So it's the government's fault?
No, it's not fault. It's just that's the way it's been structured. The question was raised previously, should we have one register? The committee actually has already identified it's a question they wish to revisit. And when the outcome of the LESS review was done, that was identified as being in 2 years' time. So there's an outstanding question in 2 years to decide should a single scheme exist, and what Emma has tried to articulate is the work we could do to help that decision.